Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're embarking on a really fascinating exploration into what we call the bulletproof mindset.
Hmm.
It's basically about equipping you with an internal framework, right? To navigate life's inevitable challenges and setbacks, maybe even turn them into opportunities for growth.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're going to confront some of those, powerful internal forces that often hold us back: fear, limiting beliefs, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Our mission for this deep dive is really to distill practical, actionable insights from our sources to help you cultivate true resilience.
precisely. And the core idea of being Goliualo, which, yeah, translates to bulletproof, it isn't about avoiding impact altogether. That's not realistic.
Right.
It's about cultivating this incredible resilience.
Yes.
It's the capacity to not just return to where you were mentally after a negative hit, but to do it without lasting damage.
Okay.
And maybe even more profoundly, it's about shifting your perspective.
Mm.
So difficulties actually become advantages, and failure isn't this thing to avoid at all costs, but, a crucial stepping stone.
Stepping stone.
The ultimate aim is really to bounce back higher, so you emerge from adversity even stronger than before.
Bounce back higher. I really like that framing. So as we journey through this deep dive today, we'll first unpack the sort of fundamental internal factors that truly limit us,
Hmm.
specifically looking at fears and beliefs. Then we'll dig into how to systematically address them because, as our sources show, fundamentally shifting your perspective on these can radically change your results.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a practical, insightful conversation, I think. So let's get started. So, when we talk about that feeling, that pervasive tension, frustration, or maybe just feeling inflexible in our lives, what are the core internal factors, according to our sources, that really act as the root causes?
Well, the primary culprits identified are definitely our fears and our beliefs.
Yeah.
Our fears, they often act like an internal paralyzer, don't they?
Yeah.
Constantly showing us potential negative consequences for any action. And this can stop us dead in our tracks even when we know, intellectually, that moving forward is the right thing to do.
Right.
Makes sense. Then we have our beliefs. These can function like blinders almost, quite literally making us miss obvious opportunities that are right there in front of us.
Blinders. Okay.
And maybe one of those critical issues our sources highlight is incongruence.
Incongruence. What's that exactly?
It's when our deeply held beliefs, often subconscious ones, aren't in harmony with what we consciously say, or even what we aspire to.
Ah, okay.
And when that disconnect exists, let's say the emotional charge of our belief system almost always wins out. So, for example, you might say out loud, I want to be a successful entrepreneur, right?
Mhm.
But if deep down you genuinely believe, say, all entrepreneurs struggle and fail, well, your actions and ultimately your results, they're going to be dictated by that underlying belief, not your stated desire.
Wow, that concept of incongruence is really eye-opening. It just underlines how much our internal landscape dictates our actual reality.
It really does.
So, pivoting then to our first major demon, fear. It's, universally understood as a powerful force. But how do our sources suggest we differentiate between the kind of fear that actually protects us and the kind that just paralyzes growth?
That's a really crucial distinction. Our sources break down fear into several categories, which helps us understand its different forms. First, there's that primal, almost hardwired evolutionary fear.
Okay, like instinct.
Exactly, the kind that kept our ancestors from, wandering into danger. It's innate, helped us survive by stopping reckless behavior. But then, significantly, there's learned fear.
Learned fear.
Yeah, the anxieties we pick up throughout our lives. Think about fear of public speaking after a bad experience, maybe.
Oh, definitely.
Or even how, rapid technological change can introduce totally new anxieties that just didn't exist a generation ago.
True.
Beyond that, we can also distinguish between external fear caused by outside factors, like a fear of spiders or heights, that kind of thing. This usually leads to a strong motivation to just avoid the source. And then there's internal fear.
Internal.
Yeah, this is tied more to negative emotions rooted inside us, like low self-esteem or fear of failure, fear of judgment. This type heavily influences how we react to stress and internal pressures.
Okay, so different types.
Yeah, and it's also really important to distinguish fear from anxiety. Fear usually has a specific, identifiable object you can point to what you're afraid of. A deadline, a specific conversation, a spider.
Right, something concrete.
Exactly. Anxiety, though, it's much more vague, isn't it? More formless, harder to pinpoint, just that general sense of unease or dread.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
And the ability to actually name your fear, to identify it, can really help you manage it.
Yeah.
Brings it out of the shadows, so to speak. But here's the crucial point from our sources, really the main takeaway on fear. The goal is not to not be afraid.
Oh, interesting.
The goal is to act despite it. True courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward even when you are afraid.
Act despite it. Okay. So how do we do that? What's the antidote?
The antidote is action. Plain and simple. Action helps break you free from that paralyzed state fear creates. It shifts your perspective, gets your brain engaged in looking for solutions rather than just listing problems.
Okay, action. Makes sense. Are there practical steps?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Our sources suggest a pretty powerful three-step process you can actually use whenever you're facing a feared situation. First, identify the worst-case scenario.
Okay, face it head on.
Yeah. Think about that feared situation and list every single terrible outcome you can imagine possibly happening. Be exhaustive. Let your imagination run wild for a minute. Get it all out there.
All right. Step 1.
Step 2, for each of those worst-case scenarios you just listed, engage in prevention planning.
Prevention. Okay.
List all the possible actions you could take right now to prevent that specific terrible outcome from happening. This is where you start getting proactive.
Got it. So, plan to prevent the worst. What's step 3?
Third, if the worst does happen despite your prevention efforts, move into restoration planning.
List all the ways you could potentially restore the situation or at least mitigate the damage. How could you recover? What steps would you take after? This shifts your brain again, from just seeing problems to actively finding solutions, giving you back a sense of control.
Prevent, and if that fails, restore. That's a clear plan.
But don't stop there. Our sources also really emphasize listing the positive outcomes too.
The flip side.
Exactly. What are the benefits that might come from taking action? Consider even the wildest dreams scenario. What's the absolute best that could happen?
Okay.
And equally important, consider the partial results scenario, because often, even if you don't hit the grand slam, partial results are still progress. They're a step forward, and that builds momentum and confidence.
That three-step process for fear, plus looking at positives, it sounds incredibly practical, almost deceptively simple. But for someone who's really, deeply stuck in fear, what's usually the first hurdle they hit trying this? And what do the sources suggest for getting past it? Yeah, that's a great question. Often, the initial hurdle is just the inertia, right? Just starting the exercise itself. There can be a feeling that even thinking about the worst-case scenario will just make the fear worse.
Right, like you're manifesting it or something.
Exactly. Our sources emphasize that the key is to try to approach this with a detached analytical mindset. Almost like you're a scientist observing something interesting.
Okay, less emotional, more intellectual.
Precisely. It's not about dwelling on the fear emotionally, but rather intellectually dissecting it. By systematically planning prevention, restoration, you move from being purely emotional and reactive to being logical and proactive. And that process itself immediately starts to disarm the fear.
That mental fire drill idea, running through the what-ifs, not to fuel the anxiety, but to actually disarm it by being prepared,
Yeah.
that really resonates. It actually reminds me so much of this powerful quote from Will Smith that our sources shared. He said, "Fear is not real. It is a product of our thoughts about the future, existing only in our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not exist in the present and may never exist. This is almost madness.
Wow.
Don't misunderstand, danger is very real, but fear is a choice." That just perfectly captures the power of perception, doesn't it? How our minds can create these barriers that aren't physically there.
That's a fantastic quote. Really hits the nail on the head. Fear as a choice based on imagined futures.
And this idea, how our internal landscape dictates our reality, it brings us directly to our next powerful demon, our beliefs.
Beliefs.
Our sources make a truly profound statement here. You don't attract what you want to attract, but what you believe to be true. And even that, our current circumstances are often just a direct reflection of our underlying belief system.
Indeed. Beliefs are, fundamentally, our acceptance or denial of statements, theories, ideas. Often even without immediate rational proof. They form these deep, ingrained patterns in our brains, and they absolutely shape our perception of reality.
So where do they come from? How do we form these beliefs?
Well, they're influenced by a whole multitude of sources throughout our lives. The knowledge and information we consume, certainly. Our environment, family, culture, friends. Our vision for the future. Our past results, successes, and failures. And sometimes, specific, really impactful events we experience. All these things feed into what we come to believe is true about ourselves and the world.
Okay, so lots of inputs.
Yeah, and think of beliefs like a pair of spectacles.
Spectacles.
Yeah,
So,
they don't just filter what we see. They actually determine what's even visible to us in the first place. What our spectacles are calibrated to show is what becomes observable. This means we often completely miss abundant resources, opportunities, connections that are readily available to others who are wearing a different lens.
so they literally limit our perception.
Exactly. Our sources even use the movie Free Guy as a kind of illustration, where the main character gets special glasses.
Yeah, I remember that.
Those glasses reveal all these hidden functions and resources within the game world, things that are completely invisible to other players who don't have the glasses. That's precisely how our belief system works.
Mm.
The right beliefs can literally open your eyes to possibilities you never knew existed, simply because your internal filter was blocking them out before.
That's a great analogy. The glasses reveal a different reality.
Costly. And this leads us to what our sources call the 80-20 trap. It's kind of a powerful reversal of how most people think about success.
The 80-20 trap, like the Pareto principle, but trapped.
Sort of, but flipped. Many people commonly assume that success is, say, 80% hard work, grinding it out, and maybe only 20% mindset or belief system.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Hustle culture and all that.
Right. But our sources reveal that this ratio might actually be inverted. Their argument is that 80% of success comes from having the right belief system, the right spectacles, and only 20% comes from taking the action that's aligned with that belief system.
Wow, okay. 80% belief, 20% action. That's really counterintuitive for a lot of people, I imagine. We're so conditioned to think sheer effort is the main driver. Why do the sources argue it's flipped like that?
Well, it really boils down to a fundamental cycle. Think about it. If your beliefs aren't supportive, if you fundamentally believe deep down that you're not capable or that a certain goal is impossible for you, you can work tirelessly, 80 hours a week. But that underlying belief will subtly or sometimes overtly sabotage your actions. You might procrastinate on the crucial step. You might miss important details. You might unconsciously push opportunities away, or you simply give up at the first real obstacle because your belief system is constantly whispering, "See, I told you it wouldn't work."
So the belief undermines the effort.
Exactly. Conversely, if you have a positive, supportive belief, "I am capable, this is possible, I can figure this out," that belief empowers specific, often courageous actions. Those actions then lead to positive results, even small ones initially, which in turn strengthen the original supportive belief. It becomes a continuous upward cycle.
Belief leads to action, leads to results, reinforces belief.
Precisely. And a limiting belief does the opposite.
Yeah.
It actively finds reasons for failure, it discourages further action, and it reinforces the negative cycle. But the really profound insight here is that this cycle can be consciously intervened with. You can change it at the belief level.
You can break the cycle.
Yes.
Yes.
The key takeaway is that beliefs, no matter how deeply rooted they might feel, they absolutely can be rewritten and transformed. You have the power to consciously choose and focus on building a supporting belief system.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we actually transform a limiting belief? Is there a process?
Yes, there's a clear 3-step process outlined in the sources that you can practice. First step, map your beliefs.
Map them out. How?
Identify your current beliefs about key areas. Good starting points are I am, others are, the world is, and the future is. Be really brutally honest with yourself about what you actually believe to be true in these areas right now. Not what you wish were true or what sounds good, but what you genuinely believe deep down.
Okay, honesty first. Get it down on paper, maybe.
Yeah, writing it down is powerful. Second step, identify hindering beliefs. Look at that map you just made and pinpoint the specific beliefs that are actively holding you back or preventing you from achieving what you want. Which ones are creating friction or roadblocks?
Find the culprits. Got it. And the third step.
Third step, flip and reframe them. Since beliefs are ultimately a choice, you consciously choose to reframe those hindering beliefs into empowering, supportive ones.
Flip and reframe. Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's use the example from the sources. Say your hindering belief is, it's hard to start a business because of low barriers to entry and intense competition.
Yeah.
That feels heavy, right? Discouraging.
It sounds like a reason not to try.
Exactly. So you can consciously choose to reframe it. Flip it to something like, it's easy to start a business because low barriers to entry allow for quick market entry, and unique advantages can always be found over competitors. See the shift.
Okay. Same facts, totally different energy, different implication for action.
Precisely. The facts might be the same, low barriers, competition, but the belief about what those facts mean is flipped from a negative obstacle to a positive opportunity. This process allows you to choose beliefs that actually serve your progress and align with the results you want to achieve.
That's an incredibly empowering framework. The idea that our beliefs aren't fixed, they're not set in stone, but they're actually choices we can actively reshape, that's
It
huge.
really is.
But what's the most common challenge people face when they try to flip and reframe a really deeply ingrained limiting belief, one they've held for years?
Okay.
How do the sources suggest pushing through that initial resistance, that feeling of this new belief just doesn't feel true yet?
That's the core challenge, isn't it? The biggest hurdle is often the sheer automaticity of the old thought pattern. Your brain has spent years, maybe decades, reinforcing a particular belief pathway. So just choosing a new one doesn't make it instantly feel true or natural.
Right, it feels fake at first.
Exactly. Our sources really highlight that consistent, conscious repetition and actively finding evidence for your new belief are crucial.
Mm.
It's like forging a new mental pathway through a dense forest. You have to keep walking it.
Finding evidence.
Yeah, you have to actively seek out examples, even tiny ones throughout your day or week, that support your new, empowering belief. Look for proof that it could be true. This isn't about, blind faith or denying reality. It's about deliberately shifting your focus and training your brain to see the possibilities that align with the new belief.
So repetition and evidence gathering,
Yeah.
actively looking for proof of the new belief.
Exactly. It takes conscious effort over time, but it works.
We've covered a lot of ground today in this deep dive into the bulletproof mindset. We've explored what it really means to be resilient to be Golialo and identified fear and limiting beliefs as those core internal obstacles often standing in our way. And we've learned about the immense power of taking action despite fear and the profound impact of consciously transforming our belief systems, our spectacles, to better serve our progress.
Exactly right. And this internal work on your mindset, confronting your fears, challenging and transforming your beliefs, it really is foundational. It's what allows you to navigate life's inevitable bumps and curves, leading to consistent progress and genuine resilience.
It's the inner game.
It really is.
Yeah.
Remember, the practical assignments we talked about, mapping your fears with that three-step plan and mapping and reframing your beliefs, these aren't just theoretical exercises. They're crucial steps that will genuinely accelerate your journey towards developing that bulletproof mindset.
So as you go about your day, maybe your week, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to mull over. Consider what opportunities, what resources, maybe even what connections might be entirely invisible to you right now. Simply because you haven't yet put on the spectacles of a supporting belief system. What might change in your life? What might suddenly become possible if you consciously chose a new lens through which to view your world?
That's a powerful question to sit with.
Something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep